November day dawns on the coast of Wales. Swansea Bay has been called the Naples of Wales, but it's ringed by heavy industry. Its beauty has been betrayed by a readiness to use the sea as a dump. This programme will reveal worrying levels of sewage and chemicals found in a survey of the water. We found a filthy slick drifting inshore from an underwater outfall pipe which disgorges thousands of gallons of effluent 2 miles out at sea. Yet nearby are some of the best surfing waters in Britain. There are about 3,000 regular surfers who ride the waves which surge up the beaches around Swansea. This week, the surfers launched a campaign to clean up the sea after horrific infections sent a number of riders into hospital. Among them was a British champion, Chris French.
The waves are good, but unfortunately the water's very dirty and sometimes you get infections, which will keep you out of the water for quite a while. Recently I had an infection in my foot. Actually I had an operation on my foot at England Hospital. I was actually on crutches for about 2 weeks and I couldn't walk on it. But luckily it's healed up and I'm well again. I'm in the surf again.
How did it start?
It's just a blister appeared on my foot and then my foot swelled up and started creeping up my leg and just started a bit like a balloon going up your leg, sort of inside your leg. It's pretty horrific really. And I went down to the hospital and they sort of injected my leg and I had injections all over my leg. And then they had an operation, dug it out and sort of had treatment every day for about 2 weeks.
What did the doctor say was wrong with your foot?
He asked me, first thing he asked me after the test came through is had I been sticking my foot in a latrine. He said it's raw sewage that caused it.
Within weeks, the contaminated waters claimed another victim, this time a 16-year-old girl whose thumb became badly infected.
I had a massive abscess on my thumb, and my thumb grew like 4 times the size. I couldn't move my joints, and I was laid up for 2 weeks, couldn't work for 2 weeks, and went into hospital, and they lanced it, and I was back and forth to hospital for a week because they thought that if it went to the bone, they'd have to take my thumb off. The doctor asked me, have you been in the sea? And I said yes, and he said, well, it looks as if it's connected to sewage.
Chris Griffiths is known in the surfing community as Guts because of his strength, but the extent of his illness shocked the surfers into protesting about the health risks of the sea. His strength gave him little protection.
I got a bad throat and that lasted about a week. And then, from then, I started to get a rash and I came out in all this rash all over my body. And then my joints started to swell. And then my head started to swell, all the lymph glands in the back of my head. So I was rushed down to the hospital and I spent about a month in bed. And I've got a reaction now where I'm still on antihistamines and I'll be on them for about a year because of that virus. And the doctor said when I went to see him, and he said that it was pollution-related.
Was it ever explained to you exactly what it was you caught?
No, not in great depth, but he said that he's seen other surfers from the area with the similar thing.
You say your head started swelling?
Yeah, you've got lymph glands all around the back of your head and around by your ears, and these all just came up in they were like big ridges. And I was at home at the time, and my mother, she had a total fit, and she thought I was dying or something, And it was very frightening.
We set out to take water samples for laboratory analysis from the surfing beaches visited by Chris Griffiths. We headed west to the Gower coast. A slick of pale brown foam was drifting inshore just as we passed Mumble's Head, where the city of Swansea dumps its sewage as the tide turns. The slick alarmed one of the surfers aboard our boat.
I'm worried about where it's going. It's going right into Langham Bay. This is what the complaint has been around. And we've been complaining about this for a long time now.
Where's this from?
Mumble's Outfall.
So what's it a sign of?
Sewage.
Official tests on bathers at Langland Bay last year failed to give cast iron evidence that bathing in dirty water is risky, leaving room for argument over who's to blame.
A lot of things are attributed to the discharges, but frankly, I'm not qualified to comment on the medical aspects. The evidence we have, or the medical opinions that have been given to us, is that swimming in sewage-contaminated waters should not normally be detrimental to health.
We took samples from the deeper waters reached by the surfers. The official tests throughout the summer are from shallow water on the beach. The laboratory counts bacteria in the sample, which indicate the presence of sewage. The European Commission has set a standard for bacteria to say whether a beach is safe. We took the sample from Langland Bay, one of the top surfing bays in Wales, to the laboratory at Bristol Polytechnic. They found that the sewage bacteria level was nearly 12 times over the European limit. It was twice as bad as any of the official samples taken from the shore during the summer.
And the high tide, Swansea and Port Call, 8:39. Port Talbot, 8:28.
The surfers go out in all weathers. What matters most is the quality of the waves.
There we have it, the weather and surf information from Swansea Sound, and this is Innocence.
Chris Griffiths has a free morning on a wet weekday, and he's off to the beach.
You can come out some days and you're really itchy, and it's, you get little specks and muck in your wetsuit and stuff, When I've come out of surfing before and I've had, sewage wiped all down my wetsuit and on my board. You go in surfing, you've got wax on the top of the board to give you grip, and that gets filthy dirty with muck from the water.
There are parts of Swansea Bay which some surfers now refuse to enter, but despite the risk, the opportunity to ride the waves on Langland Bay still entices swarms of enthusiasts.
Some people would say you were mad to go surfing again, given that you'd picked that bug up in the water.
No, I don't think so. I go surfing. I love surfing. I prefer it if it was a lot cleaner and I didn't get so upset, and stomachs and illnesses and bad feet and whatever, and all the things are bad.
The waves around Wales have produced champion surfers, including one world-class rider, Carwyn Williams from Mumbles, who's out of the sea this winter after breaking his leg in a road accident.
The enthusiasm around here is second to none. You can't believe, I can't believe it. It's what I did, but it's what everyone does. It's freezing in the winter time, and if there's surf, there's people in the water first light, and they don't leave till dark. If it's a good day and it's a Sunday and no one's working, it's packed all day. Surfing isn't like a sport. It's a lifestyle that you live. You can live for the sea. The sea is, you can feel it when the swell comes up. You're sleeping and you know it's coming up. You can wake up before your alarm goes off at 4 in the morning. If you know it's good, your body will wake you up.
The cold brown water off Swansea was where Carwyn Williams learned his surfing skills. Now, though, he's tasted the clear blue water of the Pacific. He made his name surfing off the coasts of California, Hawaii, and Australia. When he came home, he realized something was wrong.
I go away for 6 months and I come back and I see a difference in the water. And that's scary because it's happening now. It's happening really rapidly. It's not as if it's been a slow process. It's only been a couple of years now. I've only been traveling for 3 years. And in that 3 years, there's some really serious damage being done in 3 years. Swansea Bay is definitely the most polluted place I've ever been to. There is no question about that. There's no question whatsoever.
On his world trips, he's met surfers who are beginning an international campaign to clean up the sea, and he's spreading the message now he's home.
I'm involved in a couple of different organisations now, and the biggest one is called the Surf Riders Foundation, which is in California at the moment. They've sued Exxon, they've sued Mobil. Every court case that they've taken to court, they've won, and they've still got plenty of people in court at the moment. They have just started up a European body. It's only just started, and they want to know about the pollution in this area. And I've already stood up and said, look, you wouldn't believe it where I live. It's dead, you know, it's dead. The whole sea's dying.
The bay has to cope with everything 500,000 people flush down the lavatory or pour down the sink. We set out on patrol around the outfall pipes where this vast amount of sewage pours into the sea. There are also discharges of trade effluent from the heavy industry lining the eastern shore of the bay. We found one trail of sewage debris and oily scum. It was rising from where the Neath sewer and effluent from BP Chemicals at Baglan pours out on the seabed, 2 miles out. Welsh Water says long sea outfalls are efficient at disposing the sewage.
It is our contention that long sea outfalls provide a scientifically and environmentally satisfactory means of disposing of sewage.
But what if it comes up and the wind washes it back onto the beach? We've seen that. We've seen debris on the beach which has obviously been washed back from long sea
Well, with
outfalls.
respect, you may very well have seen sewage debris on the beaches, but I would doubt very much whether that debris originated from any of our long sea outfalls.
Welsh Water has been eager to meet the surfers and even offered to sponsor a forthcoming protest rally. They agreed to meet the Langland Bay riders at a hotel overlooking the beach to explain their plans to improve the standard of what they're dumping at sea.
You speak about mumbles all the time.
Yes.
We've also got outfalls from Neath and Port Talbot.
We do, yes.
Now, what sort of screening have we got on those?
Well, we have 2 long outfalls, you're quite right. One at Baglan,
Yes.
and that goes out about 4.5 kilometres. And at present, the screening there is simply a mechanical screen which takes out what you might call the inorganics.
Yes.
You know, the plastic, the rubber, the bits of wood.
Well, where are all our solids coming from that were floating in?
Well, let me tell you, because I mean, you know, that is a particularly good example. And in fact, what happens at Neath at present, with much of the sewage generated in the town, it is spilt into the river through you know, outfall pipes without any treatment at all. So I think that is the answer to your question.
Yeah,
And
but
sorry.
well, the point I was coming to, everybody's all know about building a longer outfall like
Yeah.
Mumbles.
Yeah.
There's not much point doing that if nothing is going to be done about Neath and Port Talbot, is
Oh, but
there?
something is being done, you see. I mean, at Neath itself now, we have contractors working. There's a £3 million scheme now laying sewers. And the purpose of these sewers is to pick up the outfalls presently discharging crude sewage to the river, is to pick up these outfalls and to transmit that sewage through to the Baglan pumping station, where it's screened, and then it's discharged out to sea.
So at the present time, there is crude sewage going into the River Neath and up
Correct.
into Swansea Bay.
Correct.
And that could be where the solids are coming from that we're having.
That is
down
more
this
than
area.
likely.
Most of the people in here that surf regularly either get urine infections or stomach infections. Now, there's 8 years ago, nothing like that was around.
We're all conscious of the fact about the sea. Every time anyone gets any sort of sniffle, any sort of cold, no, but believe me, just listen though. Everything is attributed to it, and I do genuinely think this throat. Well,
It's being violently ill, you know. That's
Well, in
what
fairness,
I'm told.
in fairness, I mean, you know, we can talk on this subject, you know, all night, can't you? But you know, I'm not qualified to talk on medical issues. Gordon isn't either.
We're unfortunate that we chose a sport that we have to sit in it. You know, you could also say that in the same way as you said that. You could say, well, I'm sorry, you're just unfortunate. You shouldn't have taken that. You should have taken up golf or something.
Well, you could say that, or what you could also say, perhaps, is that You do. There are other places where you can surf, where there are not such large discharges which go into the sea.
The argument went on into the night, but next morning, a delegation arrived at Langland Bay. 3 men from Cornwall were representing a new pressure group called Surfers Against Sewage. They began a campaign against sewage dumping on the Cornish coast this summer, and their visit to Wales was a first step in launching a national campaign. The waves on Langland Bay that morning offered excellent surfing, and the campaigners from Surfers Against Sewage set out to try them. But on this visit, they were interested in the taste of the water as well as a taste of the surfing. They had no problem with the quality of the surf and the sporting chances it gave them. The Cornishmen all agreed on one thing: the water tasted foul.
The worst thing is, Wales has got one of the densest surfing populations, probably in Europe. This area has produced Carwyn Williams, which is the most respected European surfer ever, and yet they've got to go out every day and surfing water which is, if our sea can be described as polluted, this is almost as close as you can get to poison.
I don't think we're asking too much, because what will come out of it, if we can achieve some element of success, then it's going to be to everybody's benefit. We are only the tip of the iceberg. If you like, we're the piece of litmus paper that gets dipped in, and if we turn red through some horrible disease that we've picked up, then everybody else will know not to go in the sea. If we can actually clean the seas up, it's going to be safe for everybody. We're just the spearhead of a campaign. We want the seas to be cleaner.
Next on the Surfers Against Sewage list was the beach at Aberavon, judged by the Swansea surfers as the worst in Wales. And there, overshadowed by the steelworks and its ore terminal, there were surfers in the harbour. Steve England from Cornwall was persuaded to join them to get a first-hand feel for the water at Aberavon.
What's that water like?
Absolutely disgusting. I was only in there for a couple of minutes, wasn't going to stay in any longer. I tried to keep my head out of the water as I was going in and kept my mouth shut at all times. I don't know how they can surf out there in those conditions.
Our effluent patrol homed in on Aberavon Beach the next morning in calmer seas. The beach is surrounded by outfalls discharging huge quantities of industrial waste and untreated human sewage. We sampled the water on a rising tide. The surfers had been amazed that the official tests on the shore last year said this beach passed the European standard for bathing. The sample we took from just off Aberavon Beach also went to the laboratory. They found it contained over 6 times the European guideline for sewage bacteria in bathing water. Yet the Department of the Environment's latest bulletin still lists Aberavon as safe to bathe. Welsh Water say they do intend to improve their standards, and the surfers can't force the pace.
I can perfectly well understand the surfers' feelings on the matter, and you talk about surfers having a green consciousness. I think that's true of most members of the population now, and there's a much heightened awareness. But as for forcing the pace, I candidly find it very difficult at this stage to see how the pace can be forced any faster than it is now going. They candidly are pushing against an open door.
But the surfers aren't happy that sea outfalls are the answer. At the weekend, they collected evidence of contamination, which was shown to us by Linda Sharp.
We found at Aberystwyth on Sunday, and it took us about 10 minutes to collect it. It's not a pleasant sight, as you will see in a second. It's mainly sanitary towels, false teeth, bits of plastic, you know, bits and pieces all mixed in, Durex, just thrown, discarded, come back in onto the beach. And it's come in because we've had a northwesterly wind over the weekend.
The government now wants a greener image, and it's just moved the goalposts for the water industry. They've been told to treat sewage properly before putting it out to sea. So when will that happen in Swansea Bay?
No definite date has been set on that, but I would guess that sometime within a relatively short while of 1995, we'll see the sewage treatment facilities put in place. If you want a personal guess, I would guess at around about 1998.
That still leaves the problem of industrial waste. It pours a cocktail of chemicals into the sea, some of them highly toxic. This discharge pipe is worrying the National Rivers Authority. It drains from industry on the old docks at Port Talbot straight into the River Avon, only a quarter of a mile from the harbour. Official monitoring by the NRA has found high levels of toxic metals in the discharge. They include cobalt, lead, copper, cadmium and arsenic. We asked an environmental scientist to assess the monitoring results.
The major source of toxic metals that we can see comes from the Port Talbot docks outflow, where the figures are dramatically greater than we see from the normal sewage outputs. In some cases, a factor of 10-fold greater. The sort of metals that they're releasing are things like cadmium, which we know are carcinogenic, things like lead, which will have brain effects that we know they interfere. As you know, the story of lead in petrol, can produce behavioural effects in children and young people to which they're exposed to high concentrations.
Could this be dangerous to people surfing or swimming in the water, given that it's been diluted in seawater?
Well, we have this enormous dilution factor with seawater, but the sort of levels that we're seeing put out by these point sources are very high, and it would depend greatly upon how much dilution there's been before they were actually exposed. But I would worry about some of those outfalls. The levels are very high.
We asked BP Chemicals about their discharges. They said they discharged nothing at sea. It all went into the Neath sewer. But this is where the Neath sewer comes out, at sea. Our laboratory said the sample taken from above the Baglan outfall was filthy with chemicals. They included benzene, toluene and xylene, solvents often found in chemical waste. The official permit for the outfall gives no safety levels for any of these chemicals. The job of policing coastal water quality falls on the new National Rivers Authority, which is now reviewing many of the old discharge consents.
We're not happy about the quality of Swansea Bay, and we're working very hard to improve that quality. Unfortunately, we've got in this country a legacy of many old and unsatisfactory outfalls all around the coast, including all around the coast of Wales, and inevitably that takes time to actually bring those discharges up to a satisfactory standard. Now, we're working on that at the present time. We can't deliver it today, we can't deliver it tomorrow, but we will deliver it before too long. I think it would be foolish to surf or do anything else in the immediate vicinity of an outfall, but I think in overall terms the water quality of Swansea Bay is quite good.
The authorities will now be under pressure from the surfers' campaign. Their target is high. They want an end, a complete end, to the dumping of waste at sea.
Surfing is it's a sport that grabs you and it won't let you go. It's supposed to be healthy. Everywhere else in the world you go surfing and it's healthy.
But it might be good advice not to surf where you know that there's a risk.
But if it ever came to that, I hope it never ever comes to that. It shouldn't come to that. How can we pollute such a vast area of ocean? You know, it's got to be said that we can't do it. The steps have got to be made to clean it up, because it's It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be polluted.